you might not have triceps tendonitis. You might just be doing skull crushers. So what might be the problem with the traditional barbell skull crusher? Well, I think there are two major things. We're gonna go over both of them in this video and how you can troubleshoot your triceps tendonitis by picking exercises that might be more appropriate for you. So first things first, if we think about the position of a barbell easy bar skull crusher, here's kind of where most people end up putting their arms, right? And they, have a bar in their hands. And what they do is they try to force their elbows inward and do a triceps extension like this. Now, that would be great if our elbows really easily went like this, and we could really easily just do that motion without any kind of restriction. But again, there are two major problems with this. One is that your forearm, your hand, is tied to an implement, meaning that once you grab the implement, you can't really move it. So I just want all of you as a test, before you even consider anything else about this exercise, to put your arm like this and then try to just move your hand this way. Okay, I don't know about many of you, some of you will be able to do this totally fine, but even just unloaded, totally unloaded, I cannot put my arm like this and drive my palm actually forward, right? If you look at me in the camera, my hand is actually pointed slightly that way. So just in and of itself, the position is hard to get into. But then once you're in that position, what tends to happen is the elbows tend not to stay inward as a consequence of that, right? Because if you can't actually grab the thing, your elbow's gonna have to move out so that you can. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So when the elbow moves out and the hand kind of moves inward, but the hand is kind of, twisted this way, what happens to the loading of the elbow? Well, if you think about the resistance of this motion, let's just pretend that, I'll put it like this. This is the resistance direction of this exercise, right? So this thing right here, hopefully that's clear what that is. What ends up happening is the resistance direction ends up loading the elbow, but also the shoulder. And why does it load the shoulder? Well, if you think about the direction of this resistance and what it's actually doing, think about where the bar is trying to pull your hand, which is kind of over here, versus where your elbow would naturally want to move, which is not straight forward to backward, downward in that direction. It's actually angled outward, okay? So a simple way to think about this is just watch the outside of your elbow, put it here, and see what happens, see where it goes. Your elbows will naturally tend to want to go inward to outward, right? So if you're moving inward to outward like this, but the loading direction wants to pull you backward, like this, and in Frank's case here, if he's trying to hold the implement in his hand, right, his hand is going to get pulled backward this way, and so his arm is not only going to kind of be loaded out in this direction, like in a shoulder rotation direction, but the inside of his elbow, the actual structure of the elbow, is going to be loaded disproportionately to the triceps, right? Ideally, what we would want is a resistance that would be going actually in the direction of the elbow, inward to outward, instead of cranking the arm back in this position where, again, not only are we restricted from a forearm standpoint, which may create undue stress on the kind of outside of the arm, like if you kind of grab this bulk right here, if that thing hurts, a lot of time that's just restriction of the forearm across many exercises going unaddressed. So we want to problem solve this with two main things. Number one is we want to free the actual hand. And number two is we want to use a direction that's not trying to kind of twist and turn the elbow as we've described on the inside. So the first and easiest way to do this, if you don't want to opt for cable options, which I will highly recommend in a second, is just to grab a single dumbbell. And instead of trying to crank your arm inward like this, just angle the dumbbell across your body and do a triceps extension like this, right? Boom. Immediately, we've solved both of our problems. Number one, we can rotate the dumbbell however we want and however is comfortable. And number two, the elbow, because it's pivoting across the body this way, is directly loaded in a way that twisting the arm this way and then kind of having the hand and the elbow getting pulled in a direction that's kind of awkward. Both of those things are taken care of immediately. And something I love to do is just to use my other hand like this, right? So you're bracing your own arm like this, and you're basically just holding a dumbbell to do the triceps extension. That's pretty much solves the problem from a free weight perspective immediately. Now, the second thing that we can do, and this is perhaps the easier way to problem solve for this is just to use a freaking cable. Why? Well, because a cable is magnificent. You can put it on close to the top, close to the bottom, somewhere in the middle. You can change your body orientation in a million ways. You don't have to grab the handle in any one position. You're basically just opening yourself to all different kinds of options that you can find and figure out for yourself. So even if you wanted to do the skull crusher position, right, you could just basically, you know, set a cable up behind you like this, put your arm wider where it's probably more comfortable, use the grip that you want, and then all of a sudden, here's a load of the cable. Boom, it's tracking inward to outward perfectly with your arm the whole time. But principally, what you really want to focus on with any cable motion is just first assess, okay, where the heck is my elbow moving? Whether your arm is at your side and you're just doing a triceps extension like this, or whether your arm is out here and you're doing it like this, or whether it's over your head and you're doing it like this, you basically just want to ask yourself, okay, where the heck is my hand moving? I want to put the cable parallel to wherever my hand is moving. So if my arm is out here, and my hand is moving inward to outward like this, sorry for that squeaky sound, you just ask yourself, okay, where do I need to angle the cable such that it's moving parallel with my hand? Well, if my hand is moving like this, then I want to use a cable that is angled across my body like this, right? Because I'm already accounting for the natural, comfortable path of my elbow. Boom, I angle the cable that way. If the arm is closer to the side and you're doing a triceps extension like this, guess what? Hand is moving up to down, I can use a cable that's moving up to down as well. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to get that overhead position where you're stretching out that long head of the triceps, all you need to do is just angle a cable backward in a direction that is comfortable for you. So again, the main problem with the skull crusher is just that unless you're able to really comfortably crank your arm inward like this and angle the load direction backward like that so that it's actually parallel to where your elbow wants to move, you're going to be left in a position, at least I am and many others are, where your arm wants to flare out, your hand is constrained this way, and so the resistance, if you just look at what this would do to me, right, is pulling the hand backward, so it's rotating the shoulder backward, and it's also going to be loading the inside of the elbow joint, that connective tissue stuff, as opposed to mostly the triceps. Of course, if you are doing skull crushers and you're comfortable in this position and it feels great, you get nasty pumps, you got no elbow pain, great, good for you. Keep doing them. But if you're like me and many other people that I've worked with, especially more muscular people, the skull crusher is going to be an option that I would suggest you leave aside in favor of those other potentially more freeing, more stable, more comfortable triceps options.